So here's the benefits of third-party validation. When you say, I've got a team of people that I work with, if you never use third-party validation, where's the team? So you're modeling the behavior that you want to communicate as you grow your organization. The second thing is a due diligence process. Everyone is going to go through their own, usually it takes 5 to 7 different exposures before someone's going to make a decision. So when you bring in a third-party validation or multiple different people into the conversation, you're supporting a due diligence process, which gives an entirely different perspective, right? Because everyone's going to share their own perspective based on their experience of the same thing. It's like 2 kids that grow up in the same house, and you'll have one talk to the other about their experience growing up, and it's like, what house did you grow up in? Right? It's the same thing when you're recruiting. Having multiple voices to give different perspectives is huge. The support, when you say, oh, what I love about working with EXP is all the support that comes from working together. Well, where's your demonstrating of the support? You can demonstrate that right up front using third-party validation. And then commitment. When you say we're committed to helping you grow, and they have someone that's not you in the conversation, it's a demonstration of that commitment. And finally, if you do it correctly, you're getting training and skills while making money versus sitting here learning about a concept or an idea, not making money, right? We say that training doesn't work, work trains. So every time you bring a new prospect to a conversation and have a third-party conversation, your job is to sit there and be quiet and listen to how those questions are being answered, listen to the perspectives that are shared, mirror and match, like what can you learn from the posture, what can you learn from the confidence. This is going to help you skill up faster every time you use a third-party validation call for one of the prospects that you're working on recruiting. So this is like a foolproof system of like when you see, wow, I could be more efficient, more effective, scale faster, like why wouldn't I use it, right? We do. So I'm going to give you the anatomy now of what a third-party validation looks like. I'm going to tell you what there is to do, and then I'm going to actually model it for you so that you can have an experience of it. You'll notice on some of these slides that we put EXP experience, because would you agree that if you have an experience that you don't care for, you don't really want to have that experience again. If you have an experience that feels amazing, you want to have it over and over again. Would you guys agree? Yeah. Right. So how this came to play, I've been the silent partner in our EXP organization. I'm not responsible for the growth that's happened. However, what I am responsible for is in January, after traveling around with our groups and wanting to crawl under the table as I watched our organization vomit EXP on their prospects, I'm like, oh my God, Rick, this is going to kill our brand. This is going to kill the EXP brand. And while enthusiasm is amazing, enthusiasm in the form of vomit on another human being about what you're excited about is not so amazing, right? So what bridges that gap is enthusiasm plus skills is going to get you results. And so what this is about is skilling up. Like if we're going to be professionals in the industry, if we're going to build a brand that people are like, wow, I just had an experience that I have not had anywhere else. I want to be a part of what's going on here. That is the agent attraction part that comes into play because of the experience that you've been able to create for someone else. So number one is clear the time. Now in the context of a third-party validation, we were in Southern California. We did an event for our group down there, and one of our main guys set up a meeting with this man that owns a brokerage. He's created huge success and he's big in the community. We had an hour set up. He came to the meeting 15 minutes late that was in his office. We were sitting in the meeting room waiting, right? So this is going to happen. First thing is, hey, I know we had an hour set up for this meeting. It's not about him being late. Just want to reconfirm that we're good to the top of the hour because we had an hour set aside. That at the beginning of the conversation gives him the opportunity to say, yeah, that works great. Or it gives him the opportunity to say, I actually only have like 15, 20 minutes right now. So you're able to know the time frame if you check in on the time right up front and work to create the maximum amount of value in that time. Okay, so clear the time. Like this is a really important thing. If it's a call, and I've got a call set up for noon, and I'm calling Rick, you know, hey Rick, it's Casey. We had a call scheduled for noon. Just want to make sure, is this still a good time for you? Right? Because sometimes people will pick up the phone when it's not, and there's people that are driven by sincerity. In other words, like the care and the feeling and the coziness. And then there's people that are driven by competence. Like do what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it and we're good. If not, You just lost my trust. So which one do you think I am, sincerity or competence? I'm competence. Which one's Rick? Sincerity. You guys, we've only been up here for like 10 minutes. So you got to be able to speak with and work with who, without knowing which someone's based in. This process is going to support you regardless of if someone's sincerity-based or competence-based. It doesn't matter. You don't need to know that much. It's just the person who's sincerity-based is going to go, oh, they cared enough about me to check in on my schedule. And the person that's competence-based is going to go, wow, they really respect my time. Boom. What I think of you just went up a notch. Yeah. So clearing the time, while it seems like a small insignificant thing, is such a huge thing if you're going into a meeting or to a call. So second thing is setting the context. The meeting that we were in Southern California last week, I mean, this guy is amazing at recruiting. He's recruited 9 people on his front line in the last 30 days. And he didn't clear the time, so I jumped in and did it in the meeting because we hadn't yet taught him this. And he didn't set the context for the meeting, so it's kind of like, well, you know, we're like here, thanks, you know, for coming together. And it's that awkward moment where it's like, how do we actually start into the conversation? Setting the context for the meeting would sound something like this. Super grateful for this hour together. And, you know, the purpose of us coming together today is I wanted you to meet my senior partners so that you could have an experience of our team and our organization and how we work. And at the same time, satisfy this next layer of due diligence that you're going through to make sure that you get what's important for you during this time.
She said, my senior partner. She didn't use the word upline.
Bad word. Cancel, never say upline.
She didn't say my boss, my mentor. It's always my business partner, my senior business partner, whatever you feel fine using. But you stay away from MLM words. And you stay away from stuff that belittles you, the person making the introduction.
Like, I'm not competent to have this conversation, so that's why I brought this person in. Don't do that to yourself. That's not what it's about. So setting the context is key. Think of that as why we're here. And you might think, well, we know why we're here. However, when you state why we're here, it brings everybody energetically and mentally into the room and into the meeting. All right? So setting the context is the second thing. Edify the prospect, meaning the most important person in the room is the prospect. It is not Rick, who has an organization of over 1,700 agents. It is not anyone else. The most important person in the room is the prospect. So edify means literally to tee up. How many golfers do we have? I know we got one. How many golfers do we have in the room? What's the purpose of a golf tee?
Get it off the ground.
To get it off the ground. And when you get it off the ground, what happens when you go to swing at the ball? Less friction, it travels further. If you do a great tee up, a great edification, that conversation is going to be able to travel much further than it is if you don't do that. The reason why you edify the prospect first, aside from them being the most important person in the room, is sometimes people go, well, why can't I just talk to you? Like, I don't know this person. Why do I need to talk to them? And so when you do a proper edification of the prospect in the beginning, what happens is 3 things. Number 1, you're able to break the ice. Number 2, you invest in the relationship. And number 3, you now have their ears. So let me tell you why. Breaking the ice is they get introduced first, like attention's on them. How you edify someone is, Rick, what I like about you is, Rick, what I admire about you is, Rick, what I respect about you is. And it's what's true, and it's what your experience is of that person. No matter what, when you leave that meeting, you've invested in that relationship, because words of affirmation, which is a huge love language for people that don't get affirmed enough, they've just been acknowledged in the time that they spent with you, which means they feel good about being in your presence. So yeah, Rick, what I love about you is how much you love people. Rick, what I love about you is, no, I already did love. Can you see we're married? Rick, what I respect about you is you have one of the most powerful work ethics of anyone I've ever met. Right? Rick, what I admire about you is that you're willing to fail and fail and fail and get up again and again and again and again. If you do that and you watch the body language, the posture, the face soften, you now have brought that prospect's full attention into your meeting.
You do all 3 of those at the same time?
No, those were examples.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to do like a run through so you can have an experience of it at the end. Those are just whatever you resonate with based on your relationship with that person. And so now any walls that they had of thinking, oh, this person that's this third party validation person, this senior partner, this business person is going to hammer me about EXP and try and convince me to join EXP. This is what most people are thinking, right? This is just what they think. Then you give them a totally different experience. Their walls have come down and you're only in the introduction. Edification is huge. The second person to edify is whoever your senior partner, your business partner, your colleague, whatever you want to call them, is the person that's going to be facilitating the conversation. Why are we edifying that person?
Because the person doesn't know them and you're bringing respect.
Exactly. Build credibility. That person doesn't know them, bring them respect. I don't want Rick sitting down in a meeting and saying, hey, I used to own 9 Keller Williams offices and I was one of their top speakers, trainers, and coaches during the years I was there. Because now Rick sounds like an arrogant ass. Don't put your partner don't put your partner in a position to have to talk about how great they are. When you edify their partner that's going to take over that call, like, man, your prospect, the goal is for them to be feeling like, holy cow, I'm getting 30 minutes with this guy. How did that happen? Right? So when I edify my senior partner and say, you know, while I really respect that at one point Rick owned 9 Keller Williams offices and was one of the top speakers, trainers, and coaches when he was with Keller Williams, what I admire most about Rick is his care for people, and what I love about him is that he is absolutely committed to making a difference. So in 30 seconds or less, I just did an amazing introduction and edification of that senior partner. The longer your edification goes, the more inauthentic it will feel. Go ahead.
Where you start to lose the prospect. Yeah. When we've talked to people about this, Casey's much better at teaching it to people on our team. But then so when I've taught it, sometimes they just don't listen as well as they do when she's being direct. And when they're introducing me, it'll be going on and on. And you can't do it because you're on Zoom and the prospect can see you. I'm like, shut up already. Like, I'm bored and it's me you're talking to. So did you hear? This one doesn't have to be 30 seconds or less. It'd still be better to, but this one, no doubt, you got to keep it 30 seconds or less because you don't want that big puff they had going away. Yeah. They still want to seem like the most important person in the room. So.
Thank you. And they are the most important person in the room. So a proper edification, like what's going to happen after this is like butter. Can you see how that would be? Because you've laid a foundation. You've taken the time to lay a foundation. We did this training for someone that, for a group in our organization. I did this training on Tuesday, and one of the people that was on it had him on a 3-way call, 3-way validation call. Was that yesterday?
Who are we talking about?
Shh, no names. Oh. And I'm like, whoa, no clear the time. She went right to introducing Rick for her people that were there, and energetically, it just felt heavy. It was like, right? Versus an experience that can be created when you really integrate this. How do I know this? Because it works, right? So my background for 13 years is in direct sales and network marketing, which is recruiting. That's what I've done for the last 13 years of my life.
Built an organization in 17 countries using these concepts, right?
Yeah, so I learned this outside of EXP. However, skill sets are transferable whenever you're working with human beings, right? You take these skill sets and you take this into your buyer and seller consult. You take it anywhere you go because it raises the value of the conversation that you're having, and it's an amazing experience if you learn it and do it. Then what happens is great, these introductions have been done, the conversation gets passed to the person that's going to do the validation conversation. What is your job as the person that's brought the prospect now? Zip it. Under any circumstance, do not open your mouth unless asked to speak. And here's the visual I want you to think of. If it's a tennis game and your prospect's on one side and you've handed it to your senior partner, they're going to have a conversation. They're going to pass the ball back and forth in conversation. What happens if you jump on the same side as your senior partner now and are hitting balls back? It's 2-on-1. You have energetically created a 2-on-1 experience for that prospect, which is push energy, which is what pushes people away. You want to create a pull energy experience where when someone leaves the conversation, they're like, man, I want more of that. I definitely want some more of that because they've had such an amazing experience. So
And
you're
the higher the D or I are in the person, the person who brought the third-party validation in the prospect, the harder it is to get them to keep their mouth shut, even if they've learned this, right?
So here's our thing that we do. We just go, oh, excuse me, mute. This is all you do. You don't say stop talking, just like, hey, mute. Did you forget the mute button? Mute. You train your people, right?
You don't want to embarrass them, but you've really got to get them to stop talking, especially if you're the senior partner that's doing the talking. It just ruins it.
Yeah, so like how you redirect that is, I love the value that you bring to this conversation, and can we come back to you at the end? That's how you stop someone that's forgotten and is now vomiting in and wants to play 2-on-1. You know what? I super love your enthusiasm and your passion, and I want to make sure that we, whatever value you wanted to add gets added to this conversation. Can we save it to the end? Right? Because otherwise, like somebody that's doing a validation call knows where they're going and they're taking a direction. And if you are in a different lane, in a different direction, you're derailing the conversation. And now you're playing tug of war with your senior partner or validation call person that's there to help and support you. And you've lost the power and the impact of what's possible by doing that. Yeah, go ahead.
And the other thing that happens is you've teed it up to edify your expert, right? And then when you speak, you actually de-edify your expert, and the prospect says, well, I think I just work with Casey. I don't need to talk to Rick. It sounds like you have the answers too. I'll just work with you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
And actually for, like a guy like Brent, if he hears this going on, next time you call him, how's Brent going to feel about saying yes to you?
Correct.
He's like, dude, you don't need me. You derailed the last call and took it over. Like, why do you need me? Right? Don't be that person. Okay, next thing, when the senior partner receives that, let's assume they're meeting the prospect for the first time. Remind me what your name is? Lexi. So if Rick's brought Lexi to the conversation and all this has just happened, I will say something like this. Lexi, thank you so much for taking the time to connect today. Since we're just meeting each other for the first time, tell me a little bit about you. Now, somebody who in the DISC profile is an I, an S, or a C, is going to do that. Somebody that is a high D is not going to want to talk personal. They're going to want to get down to business, and they're going to take the conversation over and tell you what they're asking or what they want to know, which is fine, right? Care, competence, right? So you could say, Lexi, since we're just meeting each other for the first time, would love to learn a little bit about you and then find out what would be most valuable for you during our time together. The number one mistake that somebody doing a third-party validation call makes is whatever they're excited about, they just want to share that. And the bottom line is it's usually going to take one thing to recruit someone, and you don't know what that one thing is until they tell you what it is. So the person that's asking the questions controls the conversation. It is not the person spewing EXP information. So this is a great way. So Lexi tells me a little bit about herself. I'm listening for key things in Lexi's story. Where's Lexi's pain? Why? I want to find that pain and I want to jab my finger in it once it comes to my turn to talk, right? I want to take that pain and kick it up a notch to create a vacuum of oh wow, if I don't do something about this, right? The next thing is gathering an agenda. Awesome, Lexi. So what would be most important for you during our time together? What can I share? What questions can I answer? What would you like to know? And Lexi might say one thing, and we're not playing tennis now. This is called fact find. Okay, great. What else do you want to know? Okay, great. What else can I share? Okay, great. What else? What else? And I get her entire list of what she wants to know because we've got 30 minutes together or we've got an hour together. And if number 5 is the most important thing on her list and we spend all the time on number 1 because I'm going one at a time, I have not created maximum value for that call. So I want to know everything that's most important for Lexi so she gets everything that she's looking for during our time together, during our conversation together. And Lexi's like, well, that's it. Okay, great, Lexi. If there was one more thing, what would that be? What's your one more thing? And whatever that is, she might go, oh, well, there's this. Oh, well, no, that's it. Okay, great. So now I've got this agenda that's just been gathered for our conversation. And my job now is in the time that we've got left, based on how much time we've set aside, whether that's 30 minutes or whether that's an hour, I can look down at my watch and go, okay, it's 3:32, we have set till 4 o'clock. I essentially have about 20 minutes to get through her agenda items because of what needs to happen after that. And I can manage the time through telling stories or giving examples or challenging the way that she thinks or going back to what I learned about her when we were building rapport, whatever her pain point is, where she says, man, every year I'm working to beat my sales the year before, and I can go, fantastic. Do you want to be having that same conversation a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? If you don't make a change or do something different, 5 years from now, we're going to be having the same dialogue, right? I can take whatever her pain is and I want to highlight it. So once we've discussed all of that, the most important thing is this. Lexi, what's next for you? Based on what we've talked about today, what would you like next? How many of you have an issue with follow-up? Everybody raise your hands, please. The reason why you have an issue with follow-up is, I'll tell you, because I've been in enough of these conversations as I've traveled the world for the last 13 years, the reason you have an issue with follow-up is because, number one, you're afraid to ask for the business or the close because you don't want to be perceived as pressuring someone. And you don't want to ask for the next date and time because you're afraid they're going to go the other direction. So for somebody that's high competence, where being competent is high on their values, if you don't do that at the end, what you communicate is what you have to offer isn't that important. If you do that with somebody who is sincerity-based at the end and you don't have a specific next step of what's happening and when, you just communicate to that person that you don't care about them or what they shared or what they want. I had someone ask me the other day, well, what do you use as a CRM to automate your follow-up? And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, like, do you have things so you can just, email distribution lists and so they get invited to events and this? And I'm like, no, like that person is like a helium balloon. If I leave a conversation and I let the balloon go without a next step, a date and time on that next step, they're gone. They're not going in a CRM file. It's what makes sense for you, what's next, and when. Like date, specific date and time. Oh, let's catch up with next week. That is not a specific date and time, you guys. Next week comes and next week goes. Specific date and time. Now, for somebody that's clear, they're going to tell you exactly what they want. For somebody that's maybe not so clear, and you've had an experience, the better you get at doing third-party validation calls, you're going to know to give someone 3 options, and it doesn't matter which option they pick. It's going to advance them and move them forward in the process. So maybe after we've discussed that, Lexi, so that was everything that you were looking for today. Was there anything else that's come up in the time that we've been talking that would be important for you? And she says no, and now there's this like hang. I want to go, great, I'm directing the conversation. So in the context of next step, there's a couple of different directions we could go. Number 1, you may want to hear from someone else that has a different perspective, in which case I want to introduce you to Brent. And Brent has created amazing things in a very short time with this company, locally and globally. And I know that I could get 15, 20 minutes with him that would be valuable. Number 2, you may want to have an experience of the world and what that feels like, in which case we could schedule a date and time to do that together. Number 3, you may want to have something specific that you can research or look at that gives you more information that may have come up based on our conversation today, in which case we can find out what that is and I can get that to you. So of those 3 options, what makes sense for you as the next steps? Or step number 3 might be you were ready to go 10 minutes ago and it's just about us getting online to do the joining link together. Sometimes we'll throw that in there. Like, where are you at? And that person will tell you exactly what they want. And then all you've got to do is set up the date and time to make sure that they get that. And if you walk people through this process, like then you come to the next conversation, you do the exact same freaking thing over and over and over again until they go, I'm on board, I'm joining, right? So this demonstrates a high level of care. It demonstrates a high level of skills, and you will not need to talk to 100 people to recruit 1. Your conversion ratios will go through the freaking roof. And if you teach your organization how to effectively use third-party validation and you start doing that for them, you may not be that great at the beginning. However, you're going to get better the more you do it. Nobody escapes the 10,000-hour rule to mastery. You've got to do it 10,000 hours to become a master at it and be willing to go through the practice of doing that. Might be a little clunky. Yep. You want to say something?
I want to say, who's excited that we recorded that? Yeah. There's a
So here's the bottom line. If you can systematize recruiting, you can create duplication. When you create duplication, you can get scalable growth. This is not about you going out and personally recruiting 100 people or 500 people or 1,000 people. This is about having people empowered and confident to have conversations where you're replicating that because everyone feels like they can do it. Can anyone set up a three-way validation conversation? Yeah, anyone can do that. So what could that look like? You're on the other end of a transaction and you train everyone that you work with in your organization every time they close the deal to call back that agent and say, hey, I just want to say that, I really enjoyed working with you on that transaction on 123 Main Street because of how diligent you were about meeting timelines and the care you had for your client. My experience of you is that you're an industry professional and you want to stay at the leading edge of what's happening in our industry as it continues to evolve. I don't know, am I wrong? No, I am. So there's a platform that's completely disrupting the future of our industry, and whether you participated in it or not, it's going to completely change forever the way real estate professionals work. Would you be willing to sit down and have a conversation about what that looks like in the event that you want to participate and link arms with leaders of leaders and being part of that change, or sit and watch us do it? Right? If you just did that at the end of every conversation, and then you said, fantastic, you'll give me 30 minutes on Wednesday. Let me tell you who I'm going to get during that 30 minutes. He's been in the industry 40 years. He's a speaker, trainer, coach, blah, blah, blah. And I'll make sure that I get time with him. Let's pick 3 times that can work so I can check with his schedule. What's 3 times that work for you? Can you teach everybody to do that and let somebody else talk to your people?
Very good.
Yeah, you can. So here's what it looks like. I'm going to run through it real quick. Start to finish, because that was in snippets, and I want you to have a feel of the experience of the flow of that before I pass it over to my favorite human in the world. Okay, so in this scenario, I'm gonna have Rick. Well, I'm gonna switch because I want you to hear my word tracking and just modeling of it. So I'm gonna have Rick and Marguerite be the 2 people that are helping me in this scenario. Rick's going to be the prospect, and Marguerite is going to be the senior partner. Okay? So we're going to go back to this so that you can watch it.
And you're just going to
Oops.
be the agent that brought the senior.
Yeah, I'm going to be the agent that brought the senior partner. Oops, wrong one. Get back to our little stickies so we've got a visual. All right,
With the sticky, which screen do you want?
It's the next one. Here we go.
not that one. It's the one with the sticky notes.
Okay.
Can we just pull up the whole thing?
Yeah. We'll just do that.
Perfect. All right, so Rick's my prospect, Marguerite's the third-party validator. And I may be on a call, generally it's gonna be on a Zoom. So Rick, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day today. I know it's like 3:45 right now and we're scheduled to 4:15. Before we jump into this conversation, I just wanna make sure now's still a good time for you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, the reason for us coming together today, I know you and I have been talking and exploring a couple things about EXP. However, the purpose of today was for you to be able to meet somebody that I really respect and admire, to hear her perspective and be able to ask questions and bounce ideas off during this time together, and whatever else would be important for you. Marguerite, what I want you to know about Rick is that he is somebody I hugely respect. He's got 40 years in the industry. He used to own 9 Keller Williams offices, and he's a key speaker, trainer, and coach in the industry. But what I really admire about him is his willingness to fail and fail and fail and get up and be better every time he does it. And Rick, what I want you to know about Marguerite is that Marguerite is a person who is an absolute visionary. She has a heart of serving other people. She's super humble about her success, but she's owned brokerages. She's been in the industry for 27 years. I would know this before going to the call, for 27 years. And one of the things that I love and respect most about her is that she's a fighter. And she's scrappy and she's willing to get in and be in the fight when it comes to making a difference in other people's lives. So I'm super grateful for both of your time during our call today. And Marguerite, I'm going to pass it to you. That's the setup. Marguerite takes that. I'm going to be Marguerite in this conversation. Rick, I'm super excited to meet you. I always love making relationships and collaborating with other professionals in our industry. And aside from learning what will be most important to you during our time together, you know, we're just meeting for the first time. So I'd love to know a little bit more about you. Tell me about yourself.
Okay.
Okay, he's done. So I'm going to listen to Rick's story and I'm going to hear his story. And then the transition is going to be, I'm always going to like, what are the key things that were the most emotional for Rick and his story? Rick, I get that you've got a really incredible work ethic and that starting over in your 50s from nothing must have been a pretty painful place to be and bleak. So, you know, I feel for you having experienced a lot being in this industry as well, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. But you know, we only have 15 more minutes together, and what I would love to know is what would be most important for you during our time together. What can I share? What questions would you like to ask? Tell me about what would be most important for you.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, great. So then we're going through those agenda items, and as we transition, so Rick, you know, what you said that you wanted to discuss today was Did we cover everything to your satisfaction? Is there things that came up as we were talking that you'd like to know more about?
Yes, yes, and no. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and no. Okay, fantastic. So in the context of of next steps, what makes the most sense for you? What would you like
I
next?
want to see the world in some of the education platforms.
Okay, great. Here's the key question. Would later today or tomorrow be better for you? Not when is good for you. Would later today or tomorrow be better for you? Now. Now is always the time. It's not, hey, can you do it now? And we're extending the call time. No, because I want to keep to that 30 minutes. I want people to know that they can build in 30-minute pockets of time, so I don't have time is never a freaking excuse, right? If I sit down and have a 2-hour meeting with someone and they think they've got to go do 2-hour meetings to build an organization, I've killed my duplication and scalability. 30 minutes, guys. Multiple 30 minutes calls is way better than one 2-hour meeting.
Would they have watched the video before this meeting?
So I totally want to support everything that Brent has said, and in the send and chase, here's another way to do it. In the setup of the meeting, if they're open to talking, great, I have some homework for you. I'm going to send you an overview to watch. Your job is to watch it and put 3 questions together to come to our conversation tomorrow to have an educated conversation about what you've seen and heard. You give them something to do and have them agree to do it. They may need to change the call time if you do that. However, you've gotten that agreement up front. If they come to the call and they haven't done it, you've got 30 minutes set up. Hey, you know, we're going to check in on what was most interesting to you and answer any questions. Oh, yeah, I didn't watch it. Awesome. We've got 30 minutes right now. Boom, roll the video. So you're never having to chase someone around. You never send a link. We teach our people never to send a link without a committed time to speak later that day or the next day. Never send that link. You want to control the exposure or watch it with them directly as Brent coaches and all the other great stuff that you heard today. So so you're going to have a conversation about this platform that's revolutionizing the industry, right? And one of the things I love most about being here is the collaboration and the teamwork. And so when we talk tomorrow at noon, I'm going to have somebody that I collaborate a lot with that I really respect and admire. You don't even have to say the name of who it is if you're checking with 3 different people to see who's available at that time, right? So they already know there's going to be someone coming into that conversation, and now it's like, here's your homework. I just want to confirm you for sure are going to have that done by the time we talk tomorrow and have at least 3 questions put together, right? If you're going that route, we've seen that it works really well. Okay, so next steps. What would you like as next steps, or give them 3 things? And there's one thing that's not on here that's really important. Rick, what I want you to know, regardless of what you decide, is that I'm going to imagine that Marguerite is the person that's brought Rick to the conversation. Rick, what I want you to know, regardless of what you decide moving forward about EXP, that if this is a fit for you, you could not be in better hands than you are with Marguerite. She's the best of the best. So at the end, like the full circle on that
Senior partner edifying.
is the senior partner edifying the person that's brought. This has completed the circle of the conversation. This is all 30 minutes. You can do this in 20 minutes. I challenge you to do it in 15 minutes. Like, you can have fun with it and get really great at it if you're willing to take it on as a skill set. And it might be kind of clunky at first, and you might look at it and go, oh, well, it's going to feel mechanical and like I'm running a process on someone, and that's just a whole bunch of like crazy stuff you're making up in your head that's not true, because the experience on the other end is people love it and they step into it. Yeah, I would have these sticky notes up in my office. I learned this process about 9 years ago, and after about 200 times of doing it, I felt confident. Yeah. Yeah, I felt like I could do it. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get this. And if I was like babbling on, I'm like, holy smokes, I edified in the incorrect order. Holy smokes, I forgot to gather the agenda. And I would have the sticky notes up wherever I was at, just to keep the rails on the, you know, the bumpers on the bowling alley, right? So yeah, you got to get in there, you got to play with it and practice it. So with that, we are super, super grateful. I just want to say, as I pass this to Rick for the rest of our time here, we are super,
4 minutes. It's okay.
that's not true, super grateful to Brent and James and Rob